Clock. Whoops. Hi, it's 4 o'clock. We'll start the Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting. The next meeting is on Wednesday, no, that's not true. The next meeting is November 22nd at 4 o'clock. Okay, do I have a motion to accept the minutes from the September 13th meeting? Second? Second. Thank you. All those in favor? Perfect. All right, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 1, which is a Steveston Transit Exchange Update Alternative Layout, and staff have a recommendation for us, and we're receiving this for information.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a few highlights, if I may, through you to committee about the staff report. The report entails TransLink's development of a proposed alternate layout for the on-street transit exchange in Steveston. It's illustrated on Figure 1. And they would like to go out and consult with the public about this concept to receive feedback. As committee will recall, for many years now, TransLink, with staff's assistance, has been searching for a site to accommodate an off-street bus loop. None has become available to date, so they are looking for an alternative to shift the existing bus functions on Chatham Street further west, away from the busy commercial parts of Steveston Village. The process is still in the early stages. There will be more opportunity to provide comments, and staff will, after the public engagement phase, provide an update on the findings of that process to council. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, we have a question from Councillor Wolf.
Thanks, to you, Chair, staff. Just 3 questions. In here it mentions that this being a short or medium-term solution. What realistically is the longest we would consider medium-term? Like how many, are we talking about a decade, maybe, perhaps?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, at this point, staff are envisioning that the short to medium-term solution would entail a time frame of 5 to 10 years. The ultimate objective is to get an off-street transit exchange in Steveston Village.
Okay, great. Thanks. My next question to the chair. It mentions that there'll be 27 parking spaces lost, 17 gained for a total of 10 lost. But my question is, does the regulation of the parking change? Like, for example, are we losing some that are 2-hour only and gaining some that are resident only? I know that's not the case, but is there differences in those 2 groups of parking stalls?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, no difference. It's public parking with the time restriction that is across the board in Steveston Village for street parking. It's just a swap in location.
Proximity, okay. And then my final question is, are we able to, or is this too early in the stage, but in this temporary location, are we able to advocate or put in benches, a large bus shelter, wayfinding with up-to-date maps, lighting, garbage recycling bins, outlet for charging, ride share station, more? Can we
through the chair? Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, many of those transit-related amenities would be developed through detailed design phase should the project move forward. But at a minimum, TransLink does plan to have bus shelters and benches for the passenger loading and unloading activities.
Okay, then just one follow-up. Which committee would it be or which city committee would work on that, ensuring that those services are provided? Would it be the Active Transportation Committee or what?
Through the chairs, as part of consultation, TransLink will be working with stakeholders to receive feedback about those elements.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Heath, you're next.
Yes, Councillor Wolf raises some very unique and important ideas here. And I guess the point I want to make is the way that TransLink has been lately is kind of just doing their own thing and going off on their own and coming up with things. And the issues he raised beyond bus shelters, the other ones that he brings forward in the contemporary type of transportation we're looking for with these charging systems, whether it be someone for their electric scooter or whatever, a bike or something like that. I think it's key going forward, and I think we need to drop those ideas with TransLink right at the outset, saying, look, you want to change this, you do that, yeah, there's a design, but there's some things we want in that concept for the temporary one, which is 5 to 10 years. That's considerable. And I think what he raises is maybe unique to them. I'm not aware of any of their other exchanges having all that available, but I think it's something we should actually look at. And I know TransLink is reluctant even to put any type of public washrooms around their particular area. They have it for their drivers and stuff like that. And I think those are things that we should start to ask for in the design of this. And those are the comments I wanted to make, Madam Chair, and I think those are important things. If we truly want to be in the era of transportation, we want to have Richmond in.
Councillor Heed, do you want to make a motion to refer those ideas, or I'm not sure what they're best?
I'm not really asking for it. I think Sonali has heard what I've had to say, and I'm hoping by the time we do have something that comes back to us on the conceptual design of this type of facility, we'll have all that included. So I think you're well aware of what Councillor Wolf is indicating we should be looking at.
Okay, so just take that under advisement for now. Okay, Councillor Lew, you're next.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. Thank you for this. On whatever that space is on the dike, essentially between 6th and 7th, so that it's the most southerly lines on the map here. So we have a lot of pedestrians and cyclists and things going along that stretch to get over to Garry Point. Is there going to be separated enough space to make sure that those people are still safe while buses are coming through there and moving and parking?
Through the chair to Councillor Lew, those are details that would be developed at future stages should the project move forward. That road does have a separated cycling and pathway for pedestrians that has a buffer from the road space, but design enhancements will probably be some of the feedback that the community will raise as part of TransLink's consultation. So there may be further refinements to come down the road.
Okay, because I know when we think about how it's used now, it's sort of this free-for-all, people walking around, there's not much traffic down there. And so that'll be a bit of a change for everybody using it. Okay, thank you.
Those are some great points. I just want to add a few of my own as well. This temporary washroom, I think it really should also be for the public. So hopefully staff can work with TransLink to let them know about the different issues that the various councillors had. And I asked staff earlier about why do we have to have a special washroom? Why couldn't they just use the washroom in, the cannery building or the cannery office or Season Harbor Authority office or Garry Point? But I have been told by staff that there has to be a bathroom within 100 feet of where the buses are parked, according to WorkSafe. So let's make use of them and make them something a little more substantial. Just to be clear, this is just a recommendation for staff to go ahead and keep working on this with TransLink. The final plan will come back later on, which I suppose we'll be endorsing and sending to TransLink. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, at this point, TransLink would just like to go out to the public to engage with the community about the notion of the new location being proposed for the transit exchange.
Okay, and then I also understand that later on in the year, we're going to be getting a report about the Steveston streetscape. So maybe we can deal with those 10 lost parking spots because they will be missed. So, all right, so the motion is just to receive this information. Do I have a mover? Second? All those in favor? Perfect, thank you. Moving on to item number 2, which is the Commercial Recycling Services Review. And staff are recommending option 2, which is in your report. And do you have any updates or details you'd like to share with us?
Madam Chair, nothing to add, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, we have Councillor Wolf. Would you like to ask a few questions?
Yes, a few. Thank you to the chair, to staff. I'll start with, what's our goal for commercial recycling? If it's only at 46% right now, recycle rate, what are we hoping to be?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, do you mean a percentage target? So the city currently does not have a percentage target for commercial recycling. We follow recommendations from Metro Vancouver, and they're currently redoing their integrated solid waste management plan to renew those percentages.
Okay, so maybe I'll ask at Council of Councils this Saturday. The Metro Vancouver staff will be there. Next question I have is, for our pilot, we had 54 commercial customers in the pilot. Do you have a ballpark how many commercial operations are there in the city? Like, is that 1% of them?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, I understand that the city uses around 14,000 businesses for our calculations.
Okay, thanks. And through the chair, the next one I have is, it mentions that currently any business can go to the works yard and bring in 1 cubic yard. That's per trip? So they can do multiple trips of 1 cubic yard, or per day? Or?
That is per day.
Per day, okay. And then it mentions that in this, to us, to decide on the kind of options that you've presented, there's kind of 2 options. But it also identifies in the research that there were kind of 4 generally 4 service models offered in North America. So I'm just trying to clarify, what are our 2 options matching for those 4 service models? They are the opt-in city service, the franchised with a single hauler, the franchised with a dedicated hauler for multiple zones, and a required waste management diversion plan. So for our 2 options, where do they fall?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, the first one would be the last option, which is the waste diversion plan, which is option 1. Then option 2 kind of goes off the general service models and provides more of an educational advisory program to bridge the educational gap that we've identified through consultation.
Okay, then to follow up with that, when the consultants went out and looked at what these major cities are doing, I guess they did not find one that matches what staff are recommending we do? Like that option 2 is a unique custom?
That's correct.
Okay. Next question I have is, it mentions, where did it mention this? Concerns that people have are illegally dumping things in their bins. Is there not a regulation to have your bins locked?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, there is not a regulation. We do, however, have our waste management design guidelines for commercial and multifamily businesses, buildings rather. And it does have recommendations, advice on how to reduce illegal dumping, and locking the bins is one of them. Okay,
so it's just kind of a recommendation at this stage. Next one I have, if I can continue on with questions here, through the chair is, it's nice, the report's great. I like how they got anonymous comments from the waste haulers who don't want us to get involved with this, and we're hesitant to be involved, and they're profit driven, I get it, and they're competitive. But where I see their operations working, like there's often stop work orders, and we need to inspect to get those work orders off. There's a lot of debris around in the roadways, and I've asked staff in the past, like, whose garbage is that in the ditch? Who's going to clean it up? And it's hard to say. It's the haulers that's to blame. So I don't know. It just seems like that. Sorry, I guess that's more of a comment. You don't have to answer on their behalf because they're anonymous. My next question here is, it mentions that this is the option 2 that you're recommending. Under phase 1, this is on our page 20, there was kind of these bullet points, and under the third one, communication campaign, the C, it says bill insert in business license renewals letter. Could you just describe what that is?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, the business licensing department sends out reminder letters to businesses when their business license is due for renewal. We have the option, this is something that we did with single use, to include a bill. That's just communication, letting them know what's happening with, for example, single use with the bylaws. We could do something similar with the business education and advisory pilot program.
Okay, then my final, or almost final follow-up, but on that, I'm not set on option 2 is the best option. I like aspects of option 1. That's what Vancouver does. I think for connectivity between the two cities, that might be better to go with what they're doing as opposed to what Burnaby's doing or this extra special option 2. So I'm thinking that if we're doing that bill insert, why not insert something that they can drop in the mail back to us to tell us what is their waste disposal and diversion plan, and get that at an annual basis when they're first doing their business license, when they're renewing it, so that we can at least hold them accountable that they have to submit some form of a plan. They don't have to complete it, but at least it drives them to acknowledge that they do have to say that they're going to do something more than they're doing now, or what are the steps. They might need to get things translated so that they can fill out the form properly, and that even that step might be important. So could that insert be something that they have to fill out and submit back and as a required piece?
Through to the chair to Councillor Wolf, should council wish, that is something that we could do.
Okay, well, I will let others speak before I vote on it, but I think I just had one more thing to comment on. Yeah, under looking in the consultant's report, it was on page 35, there's a couple things there. I just want to read out for the committee here. It says, lower down on page 35, it says, when it costs less to recycle than to throw it in the garbage, businesses will recycle. So I guess it is a bit of a question to staff. How can we raise the rates for garbage to bring bring up the recycling rate? Do we have a means to do that? I know we just passed the consolidated fees, and perhaps it would have been in there that we raised the rates for garbage.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, we don't control the cost for disposal at the landfill. That is controlled by Metro Vancouver.
So we have no option as a city to do that. Okay, but I think that's like the key piece. That's really what we need to do to drive these ones that are not recycling. My last comment is at the very bottom, the last line there on page 35. It says, collection and contamination at the end of the school year is particularly bad. And as a teacher, seeing what happens on locker clean-out day, it's the most horrendous thing I see in the school year. So there you go. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Heath. Oh, sorry. Mr. Irving has got some comments to make.
My apologies, thank you. I just wanted to make a general comment on some of Councillor Wolf's questions. Certainly, we see the value of the recommended option of reaching out and providing some advocacy and some education services as a critical step. And I think part of the learning of the pilot we've gone through is there is a lot of education that can occur with these businesses. They are incredibly diverse, and it's a challenge relative to the residential service that we provide, because there's uniformity there generally in terms of what waste is produced from a home versus a business. The waste from a business is really going to depend on the type of that business. But reaching out to them and really educating them on what the options are for them in terms of how they can come to a recycling depot, how they could perhaps modify their practices to reduce waste, I think is a really valuable step that will better position us if we want to go down a regulatory path or another path in the future. I think if you do that too soon, a lot of businesses are going to struggle to even respond in a meaningful way. And that's kind of the foundation of the recommendation that we made.
All right, Councillor Heath.
Just following up on what Mr. Irving has said and what you've presented here, how difficult is it to do up a waste disposal and diversion plan? I'm not sensing it's too difficult.
Through the chair to Councillor Heath, it would depend on the type of business and the amount of waste, the variation of waste, as Mr. Irving mentioned. So it would differ from business to business. A lot of commercial businesses do have dedicated staff that do handle this. So for the small and medium-sized businesses, maybe additional burden on them.
So what would the burden be for a small business, I don't know, pick whatever small business you want to, that has to renew yearly for their business license? What would the impact of that be? Because I'll tell you, we've been in this era of recycling for such a period of time. And I go back to when we really started to focus on the residential, in the complex I live in, city staff was there to advise people when they were coming to throw out their garbage, what they should do and what they can't do. And of course, the strata went through what they need to do. So I'm just wanting to know the scope of it. I could understand if you're a large industrial complex, which you should have to hire a specialist to come in and tell you what to do. But what's the impact on a small business? Because I'm sensing that is the reason why we don't want to go with option one.
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, it would involve an understanding of waste management from the base. So they would need to know what items would they need to be diverting first off. So there would be some need for educational background there. So put burden on them to do the additional research. Reaching out to the service providers to understand what services are available for the items that they are producing on site, and then putting together a plan for city review.
Okay, so the point I want to make here, let's say, for example, 2024, they've got to renew, I think, starting in November or something, their business license. I'm trying to not throw away option one, but let's say we gave them a year of what you're proposing in option two is that educational process. But, when we hit 2025, we go right back to this and say, you have to have a plan in place. We took a year to educate you, which is good. And I believe that is a proper way to go. But you know what? 2025, the education piece ends, and this is, you've got to put in your plan. I see some shaking of heads.
I think we'll just hear from Mr. Irving.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Councillor Heed. Yeah, I think ultimately that's where we'll get. And I think going with option two will give us, as we've learned from the pilot to date, getting the feedback and going through the education process will eventually, and maybe it's a year, maybe it's two, I couldn't say definitively, will put us in a place where we can come back to you and report out as staff and say, yes, now, this is a good time to make people do a plan. They understand what they're committing to in the plan, and it's actually going to be an effective thing versus something that they won't really be able to implement. So yeah, I think this is putting us on a path to getting there. This isn't a permanent option one or two. We're just trying to continue to educate the public and educate ourselves in terms of where we can best put our resources and our regulatory powers, if that's where we go.
And I guess my response to that is, yes, I believe in that, but a year's long enough. So would support us going with option two for 1 year, but effective in 2025, what we have in option one would be in place. And if we need staff to come back to us and say, you know what, we're having non-compliance, we're having these issues where we need to extend it, we can extend it then. I'd rather do it that way than the other way around.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Those are good comments, Councillor Rapp.
Yes, well, actually, my question is more or less on the same line. Now, I can go along with option two, but I think it can only be transitional. I think it cannot be a permanent situation. But my question is, now, staff did not recommend option one for the reason that there could be additional burden to small business, and also it may slow down the business license approval process. But you also mentioned that this used it in Vancouver. So how did they solve the kind of problem? How did they minimize those impacts?
Through the chair to Councillor Al, so we did reach out to the City of Vancouver, and we were not able to determine the effectiveness of the waste diversion plan review process from the response we were provided.
So can we keep, I think Suzanne screen.
Through the chair to Councillor Au, It would appear that the model that was used in Vancouver was more resource intensive than they're able to support and be able to have effective response and approach to. So just parroting off of what Mr. Irving said, what we want to do is start with this advisory program to give business the opportunity to learn and to educate, to then determine a model, but to jump straight to requiring it as part of a business license puts them in a position of what you'll end up with is us coming back and saying we need more resources to be able to police these waste management plans when we haven't done the important work of doing the advisory piece and hearing more from business. So this is proposed as a pilot that we continue and then come back with, is there a model that we think would work that it pushes more towards enforcement of commercial recycling. So we think this is the best approach because it doesn't appear that the one that was used in Vancouver has had any effective results.
Yeah, as I said, I can go along with option 2, but I think we should do more homework in finding out how other cities, especially in the case of Vancouver, that they can address those issues. Yeah, I understand that resources could be a problem, but how did they develop those resources? Right? And those are the things that I want to know in the future.
So follow up on that later. Is there any other questions? No. Councillor Au? Lou, sorry.
Thank you for this. You mentioned that schools are a big source of it. If on the one hand we're talking about creating, or some of my colleagues are talking about more of a regulatory space, I think it'd be quite onerous on some of these small businesses. It sort of creates a lot more bureaucracy, but schools, that's where you're trying to educate people and teach them. And maybe it makes sense to partner with the school board and do the year-end education blitz and then some sort of challenge, where they win something by having a better diversion at their year end, something like that. Because those are the kids that are eventually going to be your business owners, everything else, right? If we can get them going in the first place, it makes sense. I think if we were to go to option 1 at all, I would want to see a split between large and small businesses. I think if you're a small business owner, you're already doing lots of various things and, having to write another plan, just one more, now you've got your parking plan, your traffic plan, your garbage plan, like you've got plans for everything. You've barely opened your doors and gotten any work done. And, not all the little businesses have significant amounts of garbage to be dealing with. And especially when you turn around and then at the end of the year, the schools just blow all that work out by dumping everything in the garbage together, it seems to be you're focusing on the wrong space. One of the things that was mentioned was on PW 26 is better options for bottle recycling. And I know I've been talking to some people with N Corp and some other companies, and apparently we've got some, recycling deserts in Richmond. So it's hard to get in and take it in. So unless you actually take your couple cans and go into Save On and try and deal with them, there's not actually places where you can take your bag and throw it into the machine and get your refunds. And so for some of these commercial users, having some of these containers and maybe do a pilot somewhere where they can have these containers, these self-contained containers. Apparently they have solar panels so that they're nice and green. People can take their bottles, they can return them. So now they're getting money for it. So there's the incentive rather than the disincentive to not do it. There's the incentive to do it. And so hopefully we can work with something like that and create more opportunities to make it easy for people to recycle. Because what is it that they're throwing out? Like, what is the diversion that the problem is? There might be, I'm sure there's more. If we drill down into it, we know more. Like, most people do recycle their paper because, they need shredders. They need to have somebody actually pick it up. Like, if you're an accounting firm, you're not throwing your paper in the garbage because it's confidential, right? Like, every business is specific to what it needs and they know what they need. But there are things that they are actually asking for that they want. So I think we can look at some of those options too and make that happen.
All right, my turn, I guess. Okay, when I was reading this, I wasn't sure to begin with because I thought, well, gee whiz, that's $360,000 for phase 1 and 2. But how long, does that in any way affect the city budget, and how long would that be for that term?
Through the chair, the $360,000 is what we estimate will be the expenditure required in 2024. It does not impact the rates charged to the ratepayers because we do offset that from provision funding, so it has a zero budget impact.
Okay, so zero financial impact. You know, I worried a little bit about having independent garbage haulers solely in charge because, you know, they can be quite competitive, and you wonder if they're going to do a good job because they'll have basically a monopoly. But we did try it with doing the city handling 54 businesses, and we only got 46% recycling. So I think going to this model is going to be probably on the heels of what we've done with residential recycling, which is educate, educate, educate. And to me, that makes sense. But I really do agree with the other councillors at the table that we need to follow up in a year. And if we think we're ready for an implement plan for the pickup, and by then we've educated people how you can save money, because if you have the hauler coming less often, it's going to save you money. So it's in the business's best interest to learn how to recycle just as much as they possibly can. And the fact that they can go every single day to recycling and have a cubic yard, I think it is, then that's good. So I think we're on the right track. You know, we don't have good numbers right now for commercial, so let's make them better for next year. So thank you very much. And so all those in favor of option 2 as outlined in the staff report, and that number 2, that staff prepare amendments to the solid waste recycling regulation bylaw 6803 to remove commercial service options. And so seconded. All those in favor? Oh, so sorry. Can you make it?
Thank you. Just my last comment or question on this is, it sounds like we're going ahead with option 2, so that could that insert provide kind of a template of what it might look like to provide a waste disposal diversion plan for said business? And really what needs to be on there is they need to take stock of what waste they generate and how they can multi-stream source separate it, right? That's because that's the best way we get recycling is don't put everything all in one bin and call it recycling and forget about it. But we got to get each company to figure out what types of bins they need and where it's going to go and how frequently they need to empty it. And so I think that we don't need to make it like mandatory that I guess they return it back, because I think what I heard at the table is let's let this pilot play out and then we'll get to that. But yeah, I think that's what they need to hear about.
All right, I think that staff heard us loud and clear. Again, all those in favor? Those opposed? Perfect. Okay, item number 3 is the pesticide reduction and invasive species management 2023 update, and staff have a recommendation that we receive this information. So, do you have anything to add to your report?
Nothing further to add, Madam Chair.
No? Okay. Are there any questions from committee? Councillor Wolf?
Thank you. Through you to staff, a couple of questions. First, on the pesticide category, the bait boxes that we had banned on city property, could you give an update on how that's going? Just last weekend, I was walking to Watermania. There's one in their planter box out front, so I'm assuming that's a city facility that's not supposed to have one of those anymore. Do you know where we're at? And then also the second question would be, have we had any communication with non-city buildings and their change in rodent control?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, my understanding right now is that all of the bait boxes on city-owned property will remain as the black boxes, but they do contain non-chemical traps. We have asked the contractor to put stickers on a lot of them. I've noticed some of them, they have been making progress on that, so it would say this box contains non-chemical traps. Your second question, we do and will continue to maintain our efforts with private property and commercial buildings on the use of chemicals to limit rodent activity. Certainly when we are advised or when we are confronted with questions, it is something that we advise upon, but we don't have the regulatory jurisdiction to make them do that, obviously. So.
Okay, thanks. Follow up on that first question then. Is putting out one of those bait boxes in the garden or the landscaped area, is that suitable? Like it wasn't adjacent to the building, it was, is that?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, we do rely upon the pest control company to determine where the likely routes are for the rodents. So I can't make a remark exactly on that.
Okay,
Maybe you can follow up with the question with staff
yeah.
later.
My next question is on the invasive species side of things. I think I might need to make a referral motion at the end here, but I guess I want to know what our goal is with removing invasive species. Like blackberries, we do a lot of trimming, and they come back and the same problems cover the sidewalks, and construction sites that aren't being maintained spill out invasive species, and our trails have to have regular maintenance. That is great to have the regular maintenance, but it should be maintenance of other things, like the gravel smoothing out and removing other hazardous features. It shouldn't always be, let's cut all the blackberry, mow it all down again, and then there's pieces of the blackberry all over the place that people still run over or trip over, or dogs step on. So like, what is our goal to actually get rid of blackberry in our city property?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, the primary goal with blackberry is to remove as much as possible through development applications, particularly small home builder or commercial industrial applications. That's where we get the city gets the most bang for its buck in long-term monitoring programs, including grubbing and reestablishment of native vegetation. The maintenance side of things, there are a number of challenges that we are faced with, including long linear advances of blackberry, access issues, and operational issues. So on the operational side, we do try to work on a complaint basis as much as possible through that maintenance of trails and users and usability through parks, obviously. However, we are looking at other opportunities to improve those situations and be proactive with more strategic planning moving forward, focusing on larger areas or problem areas that we've highlighted or noted through conversations with the public or operational staff moving forward.
Okay, then just one follow-up on that, then through the chair. In the last year, have we removed invasive species that were on private property and then gave the bill to the owner for that work?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, the main objective with the encroachment of blackberry, for example, would be to control that. Currently, we do utilize the boulevard maintenance bylaw to do that as well. It's a last resort to use bylaws and enforcement, so we do try as best as we can to educate the property owners to some of the issues that are coming through with the encroachment of vegetation. I am not aware of any physical fines that I've or our group has particularly issued. Again, we do try to take the stewardship-based approach.
Okay, and just to the chair, I'll make a referral motion at the end in regards to staffing.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, but we can't force someone who owns a private property to manage it, and, I mean, it's their own property. Am I right or wrong about that?
To you, Madam Chair, the province does require the management of noxious weeds to be managed on public property. It's a legal requirement.
Yeah.
That said, there are no provincial officials walking around enforcing any of these regulations. So staff do utilize the pesticide use bylaw in some instances, or the boulevard maintenance bylaw, or the unsightly bylaw to do as best we can and educate them as well. There is a mechanism within those bylaws to do that, but we are limited in our jurisdiction to enforce specific management.
So you use the tools you have in your toolbox. All right.
Exactly.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for the report. It talks about dealing with the noxious weeds, like knotweed and things, going for some way other than pesticides first, in a pesticide-free way. We do use pesticides. This doesn't specify which ones we use, right? Like, it doesn't dive that deep into it.
Through the chair to councillor, the specific pesticide we use, or the pesticide?
Yeah, like it just says that we try to be pesticide-free and then we do use them. It doesn't, in this strategy, it doesn't dive deep enough into the specifics of what we actually start using at that.
That's correct, but the provincial regulations do guide which pesticides are allowed to be used for certain species on properties.
Okay, because I know we got recently, someone saw that we were using Roundup to get rid of some knotweed, and I'm just wondering, is there something else we can use besides Roundup, or how else can we get that information to the public? Like, can we put a QR code on to say, like, yes, we've gone through a process to try everything else, this is where we've landed, this is what's regulated by the province, and here we are. because I think it causes quite a bit of stress when people do see a big sign up saying we're putting Roundup here.
Through the chair to councilor, that's precisely what we try to do. The only effective chemical right now for the management of knotweed that we are aware of in the region or the country is glyphosate. So we use it judiciously as we can. There is a specific method to use it, so we do follow those best management practices. But to your question, we do provide, when we get complaints, we provide additional information on why we use that. We have links to our websites. We go out there and physically speak with residents on the measures that we take to avoid possible contamination outside of that area to try to ease some of their concerns.
Okay, thanks.
And just to follow up on that, it's a good point, is that knotweed is nasty. I think, it's like a zombie plant, I think it's nicknamed, and it just keeps coming back. So without that chemical, it's very difficult to control. I understand that it takes 3 to 5 years of treatment to get rid of it, because it's just that aggressive. Is that correct?
To you, Madam Chair, that's correct.
Yeah. And then, so I had a question about knotweed below the water line along Dyke Road. How are we managing that?
To you, Madam Chair, currently the provincial regulations don't allow for the use of pesticides within the 1 meter mark of any watercourse within the province.
Yeah.
So largely what we try to do is maintain it either by hand cutting or we leave in place such to not agitate it. We are working with regional partners, including the province, to understand what other options are available, obviously because some of these knotweed plants are close to our dike or within our dike alignment. So the work continues on options for that.
And in a case like that, we require a permit from the province, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's vote on this one, and then we'll hear the referral or motion from Councillor Wolf. So do I have a motion to take that? Moved and seconded. Okay, all those in favor? Those opposed? Okay. Councillor Wolf, did you have a motion you wanted to?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to make a referral, if committee supports, to have staff ramp up their eradication of blackberry and to come back at the budget process in the next round to present options for hiring new staff to be part of this and not rely on volunteers or parks staff, because we do a lot of work in parks to remove, but I'm talking about the outside parks areas that also need to be addressed. And so I think we need to ramp it up and hire more staff. And so I'd like that to be presented to us as an option next budget process.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that? Second. Okay, did you want to elaborate? Or
I did already.
Well, I have a question of staff. So we're dealing with blackberry right now. How much of a problem is it? And is it something that could require new staff?
To you, Madam Chair, blackberry is a regional concern, and Richmond is very similar. It's quite pervasive. It's extremely hard to manage. We find in our sites, even if when we are managing up to 5 years, that in the 6th year it does come back. So it takes quite a strong approach to focus on that. Staff have assessed budgetary impacts to increasing the management of blackberry, but would have to take it back to other departments to determine what type of resources could be presented to council at a later date, just due to the amount of the number of different departments that use or manage blackberry.
Okay, so if I understand it correctly, Councillor Wolf, this is a referral motion for staff to look at whether there is a need to hire more staff to deal with blackberries in the city of Richmond.
Yes, but also that they present us options, even if it's not recommended. But like at the end of the thing, we always get that list of what staff we could consider that would be valuable to add to the team, but maybe not in the.
Okay, so you're open to options from staff. Okay, is there any questions on the motion? Councillor App?
Well, I would support motion to go ahead. However, I'm still wondering, whether or not this would be a high priority in terms of, other things that we have to do. I don't know if we can eliminate blackberries all the way. And so, I mean, I can accept the motion right now that we ask staff for further information and kind of options provided. But I also want to see that whether or not this should be a high priority in terms of all kinds of competing interests that we have.
That's a good point. Yeah. Councillor Liu, you had something to say?
Thank you, through the chair. So are there more than one different kind of blackberry plant in Richmond?
Through the chair to councillor, there are 3 different types of blackberries. The most pervasive blackberry is the Himalayan blackberry. That's the one that produces the large black fruit.
Okay. So if this were on private property, then it's up to people to start figuring out what they have growing on their property and then try to deal with it, right?
That's correct. Blackberry is not considered a noxious weed as far as the provincial legislation goes. However, it's a species of concern regionally because of how effective it grows. So yeah, if it is on private property, then it would be up to the private homeowner to understand what it is, and with city support to look at different ways to maintaining their own property so it doesn't spread.
Okay, because like if you drive down the Highway 99, there's that giant mass of blackberry space. So that would fall under this. They'd have to come deal with this then if we moved forward with
If
something.
I'm thinking of that correctly, there's a few different areas and it gets complicated because there's private property, provincial property, and then city property. So we work best we can to focus on responsibility for the management of vegetation within right-of-ways and such.
Okay, so if the province has ownership of some of these spaces where there's huge blackberry swaths, and then we're running around trying to mitigate it ourselves, like unless we have a coordinated approach, it's not really going to be that effective, is it?
It will be challenging. The management of blackberry in general will be extremely challenging on a citywide aspect. That said, there are options to strategize and prioritize areas, but jurisdiction remains a key challenge for the management of vegetation in general within most municipalities.
You know, like I have no problem, and I actually think it's a great idea to get people to trim down their hedges, whether it's a blackberry hedge along Westminster Highway, along that multi-use path, or any other kind of hedge that's encroaching upon sidewalks and byways. I think that makes a lot of sense. Could that be a separate thing in this?
If I may?
Yes.
That's currently a requirement under the Boulevard Maintenance Bylaw,
Okay.
that private property owners trim hedges, trees, and overhangs, including noxious weeds as well. So it is included in there.
Okay, but that comes as a complaint-based space too, right? So if you see it, say something, and then it can be dealt with.
That's correct. Either staff are on site and we notice things, or it comes from a neighbor, or it comes from cyclists or multi-use path owners or what have you. But it's typically complaint-based.
Okay, thank you.
So if I understand this correctly, staff would come back with an analysis of just how bad the blackberry problem is, and then options, whether we can manage it with what we have, or whether we require extra resources, and the coordination between, for instance, the province or homeowners and the city. So does that give you enough leeway to look into it and see just what we need to do?
It does, Madam Chair.
Okay, all right, well, all those in favor? Okay, those opposed? Good. Okay, item number 4 is the proposed 2024 paving program, never-ending job. You start at one end of Richmond and then go back to the next end and start again. So this is, our staff recommendation is to receive this report for information. Do you have anything to add?
Madam Chair, I have nothing further to add. I'm available to answer any questions.
All right, we have Councillor Wolf. You have a question? Oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize. You wanted, no, you made your motion.
Yeah, all done.
No, sorry, yeah, question, yeah.
I just have one two-part question here. It's about percentages. So in the report on page 62, it talks about the recycled asphalt. So I'm assuming that all of this repaving program is going to be using recycled asphalt, because we did the pilot already and it was effective. And then my question about that recycled asphalt, you can correct me if my assumption was wrong there, is what percentage of the asphalt is actually recycled? And if my assumption is wrong, then what percentage of these projects will have recycled asphalt?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, so far we have been using the recycled asphalt program as a pilot program, so it is not across the entire program. We've used select locations based on loading and other factors to test the effectiveness of recycled asphalt, and we're continuing to monitor that performance. Moving forward, we will continue that for 2024, picking some select locations. To answer the second part of your question, we use up to 40% of the recycled asphalt product.
Okay, and then just a question, in the, a follow-up question, on the map or the list here, do you already know which ones are gonna have the recycled asphalt?
Through the chair to councillor, we're still assessing that for the 2024 program. We can update you when those are selected.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, council still have to decide on approving it in the first place, so there you go. So does anybody else have any other questions on this? Councilor
Thanks.
Heath?
This relates to something, Mr. Irving may want to respond to this. I don't want to put this on you, but it is the actual time we do this particular paving. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. You may be aware of it. We did 2 in Westminster Highway at night, which was good. It didn't complicate the matters at all. And then we did River Road in front of the Oval during the day, which created absolutely traffic chaos. So I guess the question I have relates to who decides on the times that this is going to be done? Yes, there were some complaints that came in when you did 2 in Westminster at night, but there were also complaints from people when they were caught in that congestion when we did the one around the Oval. So, and I'm just saying, do we look at some criteria?
Absolutely. So through the chair to councillor Heed, we assess each paved location on a case-by-case basis, and we look at factors such as, local residences or businesses that will be impacted and the traffic. And each location is decided whether to be paved at night or in the daytime based on those location specific factors.
Well, from my point of view, and it is just my opinion, the more we can do during the late night hours to not complicate traffic matters in Richmond, because when I look at your list, those are major arteries that we have in mind to do the paving. So I think we should pay particular attention to that. And a lot of businesses are along those, and a lot of those areas are used by heavy trucks. Thank you.
And I think staff definitely want to make sure the people of Richmond are happy and we're not causing too many traffic delays. But good luck. That's always difficult. My question was about on PWT 64, the Ninth Street is added to the list. And, I was under the impression that that was part of the highway system for the Ministry of Transportation, but I understand that might have been downloaded to the City of Richmond years ago. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, yes, that up to the Ninth Street Bridge is the city's responsibility.
Yeah. It's funny because I think most people would think of that as a highway. And then I see that there's a lot of sites on the east side of Richmond that are going to require paving. And does that mean that that area the land settles more, or is that just coincidence?
Madam Chair, the locations here are based on the pavement management system, the data that is collected in addition to the field verification of that data. It is not specifically tied to any ground conditions. It's simply based on the pavement and road-based quality in those areas.
Good. Landowners be happy to hear that. All right, seeing no other questions, do I have someone to move the motion? And second, all those in favor? Those opposed? Good, that's carried. Number 5 is the safety measures for heavy trucks. And we brought this forward as a referral when there was a tragic accident in Vancouver where I think it was a cyclist got caught underneath a underneath a heavy truck. So this report is regarding the safety measures for heavy trucks, such as the bars at the side. But what I love about this report is you provided a lot more information than just that. So was there anything you wanted to add to your report, or just any thing you want to highlight in your report?
Madam Chair, we have nothing to add, but are happy to answer questions.
Okay. Councillor Wolf, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks. I remember bringing this referral forward, and there was a number of advocates for this. I haven't been able to reach any of them to see what their response is, but so they might have something to say by council meeting. And so my interpretation of this report is that we're saying no to side guards, and we're saying no to the costly collision avoidance technology, and we're saying yes to the education method for our own drivers and those who are contracted to work on our roads. And so my I guess, remaining question is, the report highlights, I can't remember where it is there, that a large Canadian agency, or Transport Canada, says that side guards are not the way. But in your research, did you find any groups that do advocate for them? And because they weren't included in here.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, we do have to rely on Transport Canada as the source and the regulatory body that would provide that information that we would use to help base our decision or recommendation to committee and council.
Okay, Councillor Heat, you have a question?
I was daydreaming. I forgot what my question was. It'll come back to me.
Well, okay, I've got a couple comments if you want a minute. I was really pleased that in the report you talked about that the turning lanes, channelized turning lanes, were a really serious risk to pedestrians, and that 2 have already been modified and removed, and 4 are in the 2024 budget, because that kind of slows traffic, especially trucks, down. And I was pleased to see that. And then I also did not know about the collision avoidance system. That's really amazing technology that is posted all over the trucks so that they know when someone is beside them. So I found that really helpful. And then I have to agree that we don't want to be requiring side guards when both Transport Canada and US Transportation do not recommend it, because it has to come off when you got snow on the road, and it's not a fix. And so I was pleased with the report went into so many other parts of it and not just the safety measures for heavy trucks. So I just want to say thank you for all that information. Councillor Heath, you figured out what you want to say?
Yes, I did. Did you want to know? Well, that's fine. So, again, anything we can do. There was another tragic accident. A 12-year-old cyclist was killed in Pitt Meadows this morning by a recycling truck. And how tragic is that? Whatever we can do to increase the safety of these heavy trucks in our streets, we should be doing. And I am encouraged, but I'd be more encouraged if we could get more of the commercial vehicle safety unit operating on our streets here in Richmond to go after the people that are neglecting their responsibilities when they're operating these vehicles. There's more we can do with the RCMP's unit. There's more we can deal with the Integrated Road Safety Unit to go after these commercial vehicles and these operators that are within the city. And based on my experience, when we focus on those for a period of time and remove these vehicles that mechanically are not safe, or for some other particular reason, it coincides with a reduction in incidents involving these heavy vehicles. So, Madam Chair, this is something we significantly have to stress in Richmond with respect to this. It's great that ICBC is going to change some of the training aspects of it, all of that. I guess I'm going to lose my Class 1 with air, so I won't be able to drive a vehicle anymore. But however, that said, we need to do that. That is going to be key to ensuring that these heavy vehicles on our streets are safe, and our drivers and our pedestrians and everyone else is safe. So whatever we can do with respect to that, mechanically, whatever we can do on the cameras and the collision avoidance, whatever is great. But really, that enforcement has to be part of this going forward. And even getting our bylaw, I don't think anyone from bylaws here, our bylaw people working in conjunction with the CSSV and the RCMP would be helpful.
Did you want to add anything to that? I think we are working with ICBC and with the RCMP. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
Madam Chair, I can just add that we work quite closely with CVSE, is the Commercial Vehicle Safety Enforcement Branch, and the RCMP as part of our internal training program that we do for our own commercial drivers. So we can have those conversations with them in terms of stepping up enforcement on the commercial side to see if they can do that. We're happy to have those conversations.
maybe do a safety blitz to, especially in light of that tragic death, so. All right, Councillor Liu, did you have anything to ask?
Thank you, through you to staff. Thank you for this. And yeah, on the education front, perhaps our Richmond RCMP could come up with another winning video that would get 6-7 million views, talking about this kind of thing. But it occurs to me that a lot of these accidents are right turns on red collisions. Do we as a municipality have any ability to limit right turns on red lights?
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, certainly the regulations related to turn restrictions is under the jurisdiction of the city on city roads. Our top 20 collision network screening study did not identify that particular cause for incidents, and it did identify the free-flowing right turns, the channelized right turns where speeds are increased, but it's something that we can look into further.
Can we look into that? Do you need a referral for that, or can we look into it?
Or can staff just
Through
take
the
that
chair
under
to-
advisement?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Liu, yeah, no, we could absolutely look at that, but you know, I'm going to agree with Councillor Heed here. It would just be another rule that would require enforcement, so I think enforcement would still be the critical part of that.
Okay, Councillor Heath, you have another?
And I just want to mention now that you're here, in case I forget it later, I want to thank you very much for the work on the airport by the McDonald's there. They painted it and it stands out and it really makes a difference. So it goes to show you that we do have some influence, or you at least, you two have some influence on what we can do. And that's going to create a safer roadway for our cyclists. So I want to thank you very much for your effort in that.
Perfect. I think Councillor Wolf has another question.
Process question, I've never done this before, but this is to be received for information, so it won't go to council and not be on the agenda for people to speak to in the public. I'd like to know if there's a way it can be, so that the public can hear and see the report at council on the safer road strategy that we are taking, as opposed to it just being, oh, they're not doing the safety measures that other municipalities are doing, and stop. So I think if this were to go to council, it would be beneficial that people could see and know that we are doing something. Is there a way to do that?
I don't know if it's staff or clerks that can best answer that.
Through the chair, currently, since it's for information, it will not go to council.
We can't change it as a report to council consideration?
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I may, if you want to make a simple referral, I think in the past for information reports, if that's the desire of the committee to see this appear at council, simply making a simple referral that staff continue to explore options in this area or something like that, which we will do, would bring it to council.
Okay, I would like to do exactly that then.
Okay, motion to refer the safety measures to council, and then it'll go to council itself, not just to committee.
Yeah, if you make a referral for staff to continue review at a decision point and direction as a formal referral, then that will trigger it to go to
All
council.
right, does that
Correct
satisfy?
me if I'm wrong, Mr.
Yeah,
Clerk.
okay, and second, okay, any comments on that? Questions? No? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, those opposed? Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Liu.
That's okay. Can we also refer this forward to the school board liaison committee meeting so that they know that we've looked into it and that they understand what's happening?
I think that's wise to let them see what the work that we're doing. Perfect, good idea. All right, moving on to number 6, that's the Iona Island wastewater treatment plant update. The proposal is for comments regarding the use of barges for the primary purpose of transportation of construction materials for the water treatment upgrade project. And so if this is endorsed, it will go to council and then it will go to Metro Vancouver. So do you have anything you want to add to your report? Or?
Nothing further to add to the report, Madam Chair. We can answer any questions.
Okay, Councillor Heat, you had a question?
Yes, I do, and it's relation to the Deering Island community. I understand there was a meeting on October 4th. Do we know the result of that? Because this is quite a significant community that's going to be affected by the barge, based on my understanding, when the barge is in operation, which is beyond 8 hours a day.
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, we have not heard back from Metro Vancouver on the findings from that information session. They will be publishing some information, taking that back, and then ultimately making a decision on the barge location. Staff were in attendance at the event, and the feedback that was verbally heard there was that some residents did express concern in the Deering Island community with the barge facility location that's directly across the river. However, Metro Vancouver is conducting an assessment to determine the optimal location, and when they have that info, we will share it with council.
So based on discussions and your knowledge, your expertise in this particular area, do they have an option to move that barge further out in the waterway rather than in that narrow waterway between Iona and Deering Island?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, they have identified 3 options at this time. So one is further downstream. The other is in McDonald Slough, so on the other, opposite end, basically, of Iona Island. I guess the decision point for Metro Vancouver will be how far away it is from the ultimate construction. Will obviously have a cost implication and potentially impact their project schedule. So that's what they'll be assessing holistically when they decide upon an option.
And what will the construction hours be?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, the construction hours will follow the City of Richmond's noise bylaw.
Thank you.
And there is a memo as of October 12th with the 3 locations that Metro Vancouver is looking at for the barge offloading area. Councillor Liu, you're next.
Thank you, through the chair. Do we have a preference on any one of those 3?
Through the chair.
As of yet.
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, staff's preferred option would be the one that has the least cost impacts as well as environmental impacts.
Okay, thank you.
I don't believe we have those, that information just yet, do we? Like, we're still, this is just the preliminary phases of, we don't have a cost breakdown for 1, 2, and 3 at this point. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, that's correct.
Okay, good. Okay, Councillor Wolf.
Yes, just a few questions here. So it does highlight in the report that Ferguson Road is not preferred because of all the truck traffic that would have to go on there. Because it's YVR and arm's length, and we don't really have the details, does anyone here on staff know what will the Ferguson Road look like? Because I think it's going to be complete, the project's going to be complete fairly soon before any of these trucks start coming. And I know it does highlight that there'll be danger with the trucks and the pedestrians, but my take is that they're putting a completely separate path for the cyclists, so they won't be on the road anymore. Is that true? Is there anyone in transportation that knows what Ferguson Road's going to look like?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, they haven't established those details yet as the project's in the preliminary design phase. But as indicated through this report, the cities, or what we would like council to endorse our comments is that we would support the use of barges as opposed to trucking due to the significant impacts to construction traffic on Ferguson Road.
Okay. My next question then is, I had brought the slides from the council meeting because they showed some maps that were not in today's package and also not in this memo. I'm not sure if you're aware of this one. This is showing the environmental sensitive area in the area, and I think the site 2, the one that's being recommended, it's kind of like a cutout section, and I believe I read in one of these reports that was the previous barge site for when they built the current Iona. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, that's correct.
Okay, so if they were to use that again, one of these maps shows a kind of a dirt road trail kind of thing that goes straight to, where's it? This is in our package on our page. No, it's not the best picture. There's another one somewhere else. Page 91, so that barge facility there in the pink. And so it's going to be fairly close. We know that from the barge to the work site, are they just going to need like the roadway as opposed to impacting it all the way to the shoreline? Do we know that?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, we don't definitively have that answer at this time. If we do get further details, we can follow up. What I can say, as I mentioned before, is they're looking into the most optimal of the solutions. So whatever their considerations include in terms of cost, impacts to nearby residents will be included as part of that assessment.
Okay, thanks.
So if I understand this correctly, if we allow, or if we support, and Metro Vancouver goes ahead with putting in the barge facility, it's not forever, it's just during the construction, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, and then I understand that the terminal could replace 500 trucks a day that would be driving along on Sea Island, is that correct?
Through the chair, they estimate up to 500 dump trucks per day at this time. That could increase as they do more detailed analysis, but yes, it will be a significant amount.
And the big part of this is, I mean, that's number one for me, for sure, in Vancouver, in Richmond, but this is also a cost and environmental benefit, because with all those trucks and all the, the fumes from those trucks and the wear and tear, it's going to be environmentally and financially beneficial to go with the barge option. So I'll be definitely supporting this, because we certainly don't want to have someone on their bike or walking, killed by one of those trucks. So using a barge option does make more sense. So, and have fun working with the Deering Island folks. I guess it won't be you, it'll be Metro Vancouver. So are there any, okay, so this is, the motion is that this be endorsed for submission to Metro Vancouver. Do I have a mover? And a second? All right, all those in favor? All those opposed? Great, thank you, good luck with that. And number 7 on the agenda is the UBCM Community Emergency Preparedness Fund, and there are 3 parts to this recommendation. I won't read it all out. Basically, it's regarding disaster risk reduction and the $250,000 grants and the $2.5 million for dike rehabilitation. Do you have anything to add to your report?
Nothing further to add to the report, Madam Chair.
Okay. Councillor Wolf, you have a question?
The chair, just one quick question. In the report, it outlines the nature-based flood protection solutions assessment, but it doesn't give any examples. Are you able to provide one of the riverfront section examples that might look like?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, a recently completed project was on the south dike, south end of Tour near Gilbert, south dike near the south end of Gilbert, where we had completed marsh benching. So that was a fairly new technology, and we're still looking into assessing its effectiveness, but that was done through a city capital project.
Okay, then just to follow up, could that also then include, I'm thinking more in the North Arm, where cottonwood trees are kind of outside the dike and wouldn't compromise the dike if they did fall over, like the ones that are in the dike? Could creating those kind of benches, not for sitting on, but that type of a project, would that also fall under nature-based flood protection solutions?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, so any solution that would enhance the habitat but also provide a robust level of flood protection is something we'd strive for. Currently, trees are not permitted within the dike core, so we do have an established footprint for where the trees should be well set back from that dike core. But if through this project we're able to identify some creative solutions, we'll look to employ those.
Okay, great, thank you.
Great. Any other questions? So basically, this isn't costing the city anything. It's a grants through UBCM. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. It's 100% funded.
Love it. That's what we want to hear. Okay, well, good luck with that. All those in favor, or do I have the mover for the motion? Second, all those in favor? Those opposed? That's passed. All right, and just managers' reports. I understand there's a couple managers that want to come forward and update us on things from the tunnel and overpasses and bike to work, go by bike. So.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are a few updates from transportation. The first 2 pertain to the Highway 99 tunnel program. So we found out today from the province that there's an update on the procurement process. They have, following their request for pre-qualifications, selected 3 bid teams that they've shortlisted and invited to participate in the next phase of the procurement for the project. And this will ultimately lead to a preferred proponent being selected for the design build team for that project. And that's anticipated to occur in 2024. And the project construction is anticipated to start in 2026 with completion in 2030.
I hope you'll be excited to hear that it's moving along.
And staying on the Highway 99 corridor with respect to construction activity at the Steveston interchange, starting in November for about 2 months, pile driving work that will be going on will necessitate the existing Steveston Highway eastbound to northbound Highway 99 loop to be closed during that construction activity. That will mean that motorists traveling eastbound on Steveston Highway wanting to access Highway 99 to Vancouver will have to turn left onto the existing on-ramp from westbound Steveston Highway, and there will be intersection configuration to accommodate that movement.
Will that include a signal light of some kind, or how will you?
Yes, Madam Chair, there will be a signal to facilitate the turning.
Some people do that anyways. Okay.
And the last update is with respect to Go by Bike Week. The fall version of that event started this past Monday on October 16th, and for the first time, Hub Cycling is having the event over a course of 2 weeks until October 29th. So the event is to increase participation and drum up interest in encouraging cycling in the region. And to support this event, there are 2 celebration stations in Richmond that are happening this week. The first one is tomorrow, October 19th, at the Richmond Hospital. And on Friday, there will be the second celebration station at the Canada Line Bikeway.
Excellent. That'll be fine. Great. Go by bike. Great. That's better than the bike to work title. I just had one question. Councillor Hobbs asked me to ask about a flashing, a solar-powered flashing light at Kitty and Number 2 Road. Do you have any comments about where that's in the process?
Sure, absolutely. That is something that staff are reviewing and considering to bring forward for council as part of the 2024 capital plan. So
Perfect.
you'll have it as part of your projects to review and approve.
So we'll just read carefully in the budget process and check on that. Perfect. Are there any other managers' reports? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Heed, go ahead.
Yes, and, you know, again, it's just, Councillor Hobbs and I were discussing this the other day. We've got, as you can imagine, chaotic traffic condition around Cambie and River Park Way and Cambie and 3 Road. The design of that is absolutely horrendous. When you have a left-hand turn lane that is longer turning into Tim Hortons than you have a left-hand turn lane turning onto Cambie Road from River Park Way, you really got to question, you know, what are we doing there? Continually, the congestion there on the traffic that's trying to, you know, traverse Cambie to 3 Road, it's backed up, you know, almost all the way to the superstore, given the times of a day. And I know there is some complaints coming the other way, but still those are rush hour complaints. But throughout the day, when you're trying to get through that Cambie and River Park Way, or whatever we're calling that road now, in Cambie and 3 Road, it's quite chaotic. So I just wanted to raise that. I don't know if there's anything we can do, or there's some, you know, examination we can do of that traffic to see if there's a better traffic pattern we can put in place there.
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, yeah, this is a known issue for us. It's really kind of an interim condition, because as we extend River Parkway in the future, we expect that turning movement won't be quite so busy, right? But the challenge is that that's not today, and we do a fair amount of work trying to adjust the signal timing to alleviate the backups in the various directions. The challenge is that, you know, I think we've gotten to a point where it's as balanced as it's going to be. And if we do change it, we'll just create more backups on Number 3 Road, et cetera, right? So, you know, it really comes down to, you know, where you want to have your backups. And I do think that will continue until such time as we do extend a River Parkway.
Part of that concern is people that want to get into the drive-through at Tim Hortons, and they block the traffic on River Park Way. And I don't know if there's something we can do it from an enforcement point of view, or just from a bylaw point of view. Mr. B, based on your expertise, what is the best solution to that? I understand the predicament we're in, but there's got to be something we can do, and as you've done the timing to mitigate some of that congestion.
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, I think that mitigating the congestion, we've done the best we can with signal timing, et cetera. We are looking at potentially making one of the left turn lanes into a left and a through lane, but, you know, I don't think that that's going to fully alleviate the problem. It'll be a very, incremental change and the problem will remain. If there are specific issues with, specific turning movements and stuff, certainly we can adjust so that those are alleviated, but we will create a similar issue in another direction. So if the drive-through at the Tim Hortons is, our focus, we can certainly find a way to improve that. But like I said, we will definitely create some pain for ourselves in one of the other directions or movements.
Okay, anything else? Well, thank you. Good luck working on that as well. All right, if there's no other managers' reports, okay, then I call for adjournment. Second, and all those in favor, thank you very much. We are adjourned.